Major developments are happening on the ICP network, and that actually happening. I mean, I'm sorry, XRP Army, your dreams are still a bit of a pipeline and things are happening a bit slow there, but ICP, we're going to back that up with some data later in the video to just show how quickly development is happening on the ICP network and how actually things might come to fruition a lot sooner than you think. But ICP actually threw an event a couple of days ago in Portugal called their hackathon to basically drive ecosystem growth. And ICP have been doing this a lot lately. They're putting in a lot of grants and essentially incentives to build on the ICP network, which if you imagine, obviously you're building something that is the new internet. Essentially, you're just creating all these nodes to create essentially what will replace something like AWS, which powers a massive portion of the internet already. So they threw an event in Portugal and essentially it was just built on ICP, and basically participants could win up to 20,000 in prizes. And essentially this will help them accelerate the development because development is very expensive and apps take a long time to build, especially if you're learning on a whole new platform. Perhaps that can take a lot more time. It also showcased their talents and prowess to fellow builders, and the main thing is major VC investors. But anyway guys, like and subscribe if you like the content, and I have a free Telegram group at the moment. First 100 members will get lifetime access to any paid groups that I do. There is currently nothing happening in there at the moment, but I will be looking to share some thoughts, etc. in the future, so just come on and join. I appreciate it. But yeah, essentially this was just to showcase it to major VC investors, and as crypto is becoming much more friendly to big money, obviously now we've got the ETF approval, big money is starting to invest in crypto and they're starting to get a little bit more entangled with it. And for projects like ICP really kind of break away from just being about crypto. They have huge goals. Even if they weren't a crypto company, they would still be very impressive on the side. It's doing something that is completely new. They're not building their own infrastructure. They're obviously building all of these nodes, which you or I could essentially be if we wanted to. And this creates our own decentralized internet away from all of these companies. And that can also make it a lot cheaper for people to use, because obviously if it's individual nodes, people kind of responsible for hosting and the upkeep themselves. So it requires a lot less stuff on that side. So essentially they can drive down the cost. So even in a non-crypto industry, ICP would be very, very competitive. And coming a long way from the SBF intervention, trying to push ICP down, it has actually started to develop at the fastest rate of any blockchain on there. I'm going to back this up with some data. So this is a site called developerreport.com, and we can see the monthly active developers across the crypto platform. So we can see it sort of peaked around here, and that might just be because maybe the foundations of a lot of new projects have been built. I'm not sure entirely why it is dropping. Maybe people are looking at doing something else, but that's not really important. But there's something to keep in mind that is actually dropping across the board. If we take a look at something like Solana, we can see that the amount has actually dropped significantly, the active developers. And again, I'm not entirely sure why that is. There might be some reasons around that. Maybe a lot of these projects are coming to completion and nobody's really starting new ones, so they don't really need as many devs. So you can actually see as well like part-time developers and one-time developers. So you can see a lot of the one-time developers decreasing, also while the full-time developers are decreasing. So where are these developers going? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I haven't emailed them all on LinkedIn just to see what they're all doing. I don't have the time for that. It takes me long enough to make these videos. So let's also compare it to Hedera, because Hedera has the backing of a lot of big companies. So you'd expect a project like that to be kind of developing quite rapidly. Obviously, we don't know how many developers are actually within the companies that are on the board doing things, but we can actually see that they don't have many developers available at the moment. And yes, we'll get into the main event, which is ICP's developers. Sorry about my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather at the moment, so I'm doing my best here. But yeah, if we take a look at ICP's, we can see that the monthly active developers is significantly flat and actually peaking around recently, which is quite impressive. ICP actually has 644 monthly active devs, not quite as many Solana, but we can see that this is incredibly flat. Like, this is not going down like all of the other projects. We can see Solana is on a steep decline, but ICP actually had its peak in December, which is pretty impressive. And we can see that even the full-time devs are still remaining pretty constant. Part-time devs also kind of remaining very constant. So development on ICP is happening and it's not slowing down. It's actually increasing rapidly whilst a lot of the other projects are decreasing. And this guide actually says here, ICP has become the most developed crypto project in the past month, which is pretty impressive. So, and you can just see here on this little banner that ICP has overtaken Cardano, Polkadot, and Kusama as the most developed project in the last 30 days, which is pretty impressive. And if we take a look at token terminal here, we can see that the ICP fees in the last 30 days are 91%. But granted, they are pretty small, and I would imagine it is also because a lot of this development is in very early stages, but just the fact that it's up 91% is actually insane. And also you would expect it to be up if the price was significantly up, because obviously if the price doubles, then the fees would essentially double. But we can actually see here that the price hasn't actually really increased at all. But we can see here that the price hasn't really increased at all. So this is purely just fees being taken from transactions, you or I transacting, or perhaps some of the DApps starting to get used, because there is so much development happening on the ICP network. If we take a look at Solana by example, we can see that the fees are only up 6%, even though that the price has significantly increased since then. So it's just a big sign that ICP is getting a lot of development. And yes, the price hasn't really gone up. I did in the last video about ICP talk about how I think it's going to be one of the next projects to go up. It's kind of been neglected with this whole AI hype. People kind of just tunnel vision on one thing until the next thing just pops up and just gives them a shiny object. So you kind of have to be a little bit ahead of the curve when things are happening. And the fact that so much development is happening shows that it's going to be a very big contender to something like Solana, because obviously as well it provides the whole network, whereas everything on Solana, if you're hosting an app, has to be hosted on something like AWS. So it doesn't really give that massive centralization. And yes, everyone's focusing on AI right now. It's all about AI. Everyone's just buying render. The price is just skyrocketing. You can see that ICP is actually getting into AI anyway. They basically launched an AI initiative with Singularity Net, and Singularity Net are actually one of my favorite AI projects. Their revenue is just insane relative to even the likes of Render. They're doing way more revenue, yet has a much lower valuation, perhaps because they just don't have as much marketing, because as we know, everything that's driven in the crypto space is marketing. There's just so many sheep out there who just follow everyone else, what they're talking about, and just jump on that bandwagon. So if you're kind of doing your research, you kind of can get ahead of that curve and just understand what's happening when you see things like this, because these are huge developments. ICP can pretty much go into every narrative. If you think about it, people are just building those projects on ICP. They just need that traction. Essentially, they're getting grants, etc. from ICP. So we can see here that they have a 5 million token grant to basically fuel decentralized AI development. So they're just trying to get their hands at everything. They have a lot of money to do this. They're being smart with everything, because if you even think about how they were just screwed by FTX, they continued developing. They're not looking to just kind of rug pull everything. They have a massive goal in mind, and they're basically looking to achieve that. Not like meme coins where you're just literally buying in and everyone's just trying to FOMO in and make some money. This project actually has some legs, and it actually is trying to go the full distance, and it's incentivizing development on its chain. So a new 5 million grant basically aims to advance artificial intelligence, and they'll basically be awarded in these increments, which probably isn't a lot for AI, but this would essentially get the projects over the line, so give them something to perhaps show investors. And I imagine as well that would help them get in front of VCs if they are building cool projects, because essentially all of these can just be real world applications. It doesn't have to be anything to do with the chain. Essentially this would just be to do with the development of AI and basically progressing that, as we know AI is going to be one of the biggest industries. That's just my update for ICP. It's just crazy that the development is going so rapidly, and when people start to catch on to this and it becomes mainstream, the price is just gonna absolutely rocket, because people are looking for that main utility token, and currently everyone kind of thinks that it's Solana. Obviously these other ones are kind of here for that, but ICP has the full package in that you have the decentralized internet. They have their own nodes and not centralized to AWS, which is a really good USP. But the one thing that's going to push them over the line in doing very, very well and getting the real attention of people is the fact that they're just doing so much development on chain, the fact that they are the fastest developing chain, and that's going to come to fruition in a few years. If you think about it, like all of these DApps, 3 to 4 years time, ready for the next bull run. This could go even bigger than Solana in theory, just because they probably have a lot more development happening by then that will come out, and they're also incentivized, so it just kind of helps, and more developers are going to want to come into the ICP network and develop, because they're going to get grants to help them develop that project, when these projects aren't really going to pay anything for a long time, because it takes a long time to get people on board to actually perfect the product. If you think about ChatGPT, it took them around 7 or 8 years to even get to 3.5, probably longer. So these developers are not really making any money, so these grants make a huge difference. So it's going to attract developers from others, and I imagine a lot of these developers from here are likely moving to here. So it's just something to keep in mind, guys. You just want to stay ahead of the narrative, look at the data so you can make smart decisions, because if you are buying into the AI narrative now, you're probably a little bit late. I still think it's got a ways to run in this bull run, but we're definitely pushing the upper limits right now, so you want to be looking at other stuff that still is going to grow in this bull market. I definitely think IC is going to be one of those, especially when this stuff becomes more mainstream and people realize how fast this is developing. But anyway, guys, if you like the video, like and subscribe, really appreciate it.